Good evening, everyone, or actually good morning, everyone. Thanks for staying up with us. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown, and we are live, and we are looking for a lively conversation tonight. Lots to get into, including the Pirates, who said goodbye to Ivan Nova and seem to be ready to say goodbye to Francisco Cervelli. Also, the Penguins, 5-1-1 in the last 7. Have they turned the corner? But what's wrong with Evgeny Malkin? We'll get into that in goaltending. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is the Steelers. Yeah, they beat their nemesis today, and they did it in a way that I don't think many people thought they would, with only 27 points scored combined. Here's your panel left to right on your television screen. We begin with Andrew Fillipponi from the PM show, every day on 93.7 The Fan, also nationally known on the CBS Sports Radio. In the middle is Jason Mackey, Penguins' outstanding beat writer with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And to the right, Mark Kaboly, who does great work at The Athletic for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we'll start right off the bat here. Andrew, I want to get into this team.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen them win 6 in a row, look impressive, lose 3 in a row, and the defense give up huge drives at the end of the game, blowing leads. And now we saw them beat their nemesis. So who are the Pittsburgh Steelers? They're still in first place right now, but what are they?
I think they're a team that's good enough to make the playoffs. I wouldn't say much more than that because I'm not a huge fan of that 4-5 matchup against, say, the Chargers right now.
Or the Chiefs.
Or the Chiefs possibly. But I think we learned that they're good enough at home to beat what I would call a slightly above average Patriots team. I think the #1 storyline from this game is more about New England than it is Pittsburgh. At least that's already what the national media is saying. Tom Brady looking over the hill. Mistake at the end of the game. 0 for 3 in the red zone. You never see that. Gronkowski looks shot. And some errors by Belichick, bad coaching, 14 penalties. So I think we learned today that the Steelers are good enough to make the playoffs, Bob, and the Patriots are not going to win the Super Bowl. I think we can start now to put them in another group of teams that can be dangerous in the playoffs, but they're not a true Super Bowl contender in my mind.
Mark, what do you say about that?
Well, I think the Steelers are what, as Denny Green used to say, they are what we thought they all were. I mean, they're a team, I do believe, if they put everything together, play like they did on Sunday, they can go far in the playoffs. Why not? I mean, they have the talent. Their defense has played well. They can go to the Super Bowl, just like about 8 other teams in this AFC, I do believe. I think it's going to be a key of who gets hot at what time. And what better time is to beat the Patriots, beat the Saints, and beat the Bengals and get into the playoffs. But you know what? They are also a team that can lose to the Raiders at a snap of a finger. And I think that's what you're just going to have to put up with heading down the stretch here and into the playoffs. They can win any game. They can lose any game. But you know what? There's every single team, I do believe, in the NFL right now, even in the playoffs, can say the same exact thing. The Chiefs are flawed. The Chargers are flawed. The Rams are flawed. They're all flawed, which means anybody can win, even a 5 seed, even a 6 seed. Just continue to play better, get hot at the right time, and the Steelers can do that. But they also could not make the playoffs if they don't win next week and the week after. So I think that's basically what it's like.
I want to go back to one thing that Andrew said that I thought was accurate. I'm certainly not disagreeing with it. The national narrative that the Patriots are over the hill or done or flawed or whatever. I'm sorry. I'm not buying that in the postseason. Let's say it's at Foxborough. It doesn't even really matter. Do we really think
Yes, it does. I think it does matter.
Not to the point I'm making, Pomp. I still think this is a legitimate AFC contender. I'm not buying that they're done with.
Who, New England?
But they have
New
5
England.
losses on the
I'll
road
make you a bet.
and they're undefeated at home.
I'm red hot right now. I'll make you a bet, Jason. if they go on the road, they won't win. They will not win a game away from Gillette Stadium in the playoffs.
Okay, what's the bet? I'll take that.
We'll talk about the parameters off the air. They're 3-5 away from Gillette Stadium.
I'm fine with that. I'll take that every day of the week.
Continue your thought, though.
All right. No, I'm just not buying the narrative that the Patriots are finished or done or they can't compete in the playoffs. Anyway, I was encouraged by what I saw today out of the Steelers defense. I thought the secondary was much improved. I realized the flaws that we did see in New England, at least today. I was encouraged by what they did mostly with Rob Gronkowski, how Jalen Samuels ran the ball. And to Mark's point, they are somebody that on any given day can compete with them. They can be one of the best teams in the AFC. It's weird that they can be one of the worst, but I'm certainly not going to say that they can't compete in the playoffs at this point. They're there.
Mark, let me ask you this. Norton, this is kind of a weird way to conduct this conversation, but first thing they do today is they win the coin toss, which normally means defer. I thought it was huge that they took the ball and did something with it because in the past when they deferred, at least recently, they've not done well, and they've fallen behind, which defeats that whole purpose. How big was that in your mind?
I think it was pretty big. I called it the George Costanza opposite episode on Seinfeld. Everything Tomlin did today seemed like the opposite of what he normally did, and that starts from wearing the throwback uniforms, or at least the color rush uniforms. You don't see that. That came out of nowhere, did that opposite, and did a couple of things opposite as well, including taking the ball. And you know what? It almost came back and bit him, because you saw what happened there late in the first half. The Patriots had a chance, which I do think was a huge part of the game. Was able to get one of those Belichick infamous double scores, or scoring late in the first half, get the ball to start the second half. That did not happen, but I couldn't remember the last time they took the ball when they won. I think they just tried to change some things up. I don't think they could. And one thing that I think they couldn't have did was fall down early, get a big drive.
Well, that's what I think.
Well, they did it one other time this year. When they played Carolina on a Thursday night, they wanted the ball to start, and I think it was because they wanted to get the first score against another, at the time, red-hot offense. And to me, I know these types of things don't always hypothetically work, but if New England had scored, if they had gotten the ball, the Steelers had deferred, if they hit that touchdown to Hogan, where you've got the Keystone Cops and Three Stooges out there, and they go up 7-0 because of a blunder, a self-inflicted wound, I think it's a totally different game. So I liked that you put your best unit, your offense, on the field against a wounded New England unit and tried to push the envelope right away.
Pop, I'm really glad that question actually involved football. I was worried for a second you were going to take it sideways. But no, it's an interesting point made by you, Mark, that to everything that Tomlin normally does, they try to do the opposite. I sort of take that a little bit bigger and think about the Patriots. Any acknowledgement that this is a normal regular season game, I don't know how you can do it. It is absolutely different. I don't want to say the Patriots are in their heads, but you're certainly thinking a little bit differently, or it seemed like that to me watching it, how differently the Steelers seem to approach this game, and good for them. It worked out for them.
All right, let's talk about a couple of other things, and we'll carry this into the next discussion as well. But I want to get into Chris Boswell. It was a big area of concern this week. They brought in two guys, one of whom signed with Jacksonville, and Kai Forbath, who hit 2 field goals and an extra point today. And when he missed that 32-yarder, I know a lot of people had said, that's it. But I knew Mike Tomlin was going to give him the entire game. That's why they kept him here. And I think sometimes as a coach, you got to do that. Stick up for your guy. Jason, how important was that, and what do you think this means moving forward?
I think it's important if you're Chris Boswell to hear Tomlin talk the way he is, especially if they go the direction I think they're going to go. I don't agree with it. If it were me, I think Chris Boswell would have never even entered the stadium, to quote Mike Tomlin, and I certainly wouldn't bring him back this week. It looks like a mental case. I don't like what I've seen, and I feel like they can do better. But I think they're going to keep him around, and if you are going to go that route, then yes, you need to handle it the way Mike Tomlin did. And you know, we've seen sort of similar stuff happen in the hockey world with Mike Sullivan and Matt Murray and how they're trying to bring him along. You need to stick by your guy. So if that's the route they're going to go, I like what Mike Tomlin did, giving him another chance. And he did drill it. It's just, 1 for 2 and kicking field goals isn't going to work.
I don't know if you have to stick by him. Just generally speaking, in 2010, the last time they went to the Super Bowl, they cut Jeff Reed in the middle of the season. So they have pulled the plug on kickers before. I think from a team morale standpoint, how do you cut a guy now? They made a 48-yard field goal to give you a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter. So I don't see that happening. One of the things I did not like, though, Bob, was the result was great. He kicks a field goal to put him up 10. Everybody loves him right now. But the process there I hated. They basically ran the ball into the line of the scrimmage on second down to play for a field goal. And then on third down, instead of trying to set up a play that got you a first down, they kind of went for broke and tried to go for a touchdown, which almost happened, but that's not a very high percentage play. So it worked, but I didn't love the way they got to the position to have Boswell on the field for that kick.
I would have liked to see the 4th and 3 at that point and see if Tomlin had that same view as that.
What do you think he does, Mark? I think he goes for it, don't you?
I think you would have to go for it. It's 4th and 3. You can't trust that guy at that point, knowing that he kicked a 38-yarder about 25 feet to the right. But as for what they're going to do, they really don't have any choice, because who's out there? If Forbath was the guy they were really thinking about bringing in here, he's obviously gone now. Who do you got? It's pretty hard to go out and scour some place now, week 16, and find somebody better with him. I mean, I just don't think. Hey, Bob, you're the guy that told us about the hip swing and stuff. It looks like he's just. It doesn't look like he's just chopping at the ball right now.
Yeah, if you look, I'm telling you, go videotape last year versus this year, you will see technically something changed.
If you go by percentage, I don't think you can find anybody worse, though.
You're right,
Very
and that's
true.
why it's not going to happen. He'll be here, and they're going to have to live and die with the results. All right, we'll continue Steelers when we come back. But what's the most anticipated year-end matchup, you might ask? Well, to me, it's matching you up with the car, truck, or SUV of your dreams. Number one Cochran's big year-end wrap-up. You can buy or lease any new vehicle now, and you're going to get the year's best offers. Plus, listen to this, a $500 Visa gift card. That's on top of their already low clear-cut prices and all manufacturers' incentives. So hurry in, the big year-end wrap. The number one Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by number one Cochran, go one better. And by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.